Hi, everyone. We're going to get started with our Activated Thursday interview in just a few moments. We're going to wait for our guests to arrive, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So, as we're waiting, I can also give a brief introduction of who we're going to be speaking with today. We're going to be talking with Zaina Thiam. She is a 14-year-old activist from Rhode Island, and we've been working with Zaina for the past, I would say, um, feels like a year, but it's probably not that long. So she's amazing, and I can't wait for her to join us. So just sit tight. How are folks doing? I don't know how to facilitate engagement while we wait for people, but if you can say how you're feeling in the comments. Oh, and I guess it will be helpful to also say what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk specifically about how to organize protests and rallies, specifically in the climate of today, where we're fighting for ending police brutality and anti-black racism. And Zaina is here, so I'm done stalling. And I'm gonna go ahead and add her to our live.
Hi,
Hey Zaina, how are
I'm
you?
great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to chat with you today. You are one of our loyal um, Activate Thursday followers, and so I don't know if other folks can hear echo, but I think there's a bit of an echo um, when I talk on your end. I
No, I
think. Wait,
hear it.
never mind. I think it's fixed. Um, so why don't you go ahead and get started and tell the audience a little bit about who you are, how you got involved in advocacy.
Okay, so I'm obviously Zaina Blue, but you can call me Zaina. I'm from Woonsocket, Rhode Island, and I'm 14. I'm in eighth grade. I started, in like mid-December, and one of the biggest reasons why I joined advocacy is because I know in my city that most of the time, most of the youth over here are looked at as bad kids and things like that. We have like a high drug problem, kind of, as well as like a crime rate, and I feel like a lot of us aren't that bad, and I feel like we're put in a negative light. And I thought, and after one of my friends like was murdered, I thought advocacy was a great way to show people that we have opinions too, and we're not all bad kids. So
Yeah, no, that's really upsetting that you had that experience. I mean, no one should have those kinds of experiences, but at such a young age too, and that's kind of what activated you. And I think that's important, right? Like if people experience traumatic things, there's always something, a way you can channel that into purpose, right? Channel pain into purpose. So I really appreciate that you were able to do that and you joined us and that we're actually helping you do that as well. So, why don't you talk a little bit about the event that you're planning?
okay, so I'm planning a what is it? A protest, yes, a Black Lives Matter protest. And the protest is tomorrow, actually. And basically, we're just showing our solidarity to everyone who's fallen through police brutality, etc. And we're starting at Market Square, and then we're going to be walking to the city council, and we're going to let them hear our call to actions, our demands. And then afterwards, we're going to walk to the police station, and they're going to hear our thoughts and demands as well. And then we're going to walk back and just say some finishing words. And we're going to be expressing ourselves through our speeches as well as poetry and anything anyone wants to present.
That's amazing. And who came up with the idea to hold this kind of event and protest?
Okay, well, like, I think I was downstairs cooking breakfast and I was on FaceTime with one of my friends. I can't tell you who. I think it was, yes, it was my best friend Miriam. And we were talking, and I was looking at my TV because I was seeing the protests and riots, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, we shouldn't have to live through a time where we have to riot for injustice and things like that, for justice for us. So I was like, we should do one. And then she was like, yeah. And I was like, maybe I
Yeah.
should do one. So then I called one of my friends, Leah. She's very passionate about racial injustice and fighting for it. And I was like, Leah, we should host something like an event to show people that the youth, we have, to give the youth a platform and that we have something to say about this. And not everything has to be about violence. And we can also gather Woonsocket, my city, at in a like peaceful unity. And then she was like, yeah. So we started planning. And our first plan was to have an event. So we had local artists coming to do poetry, to do music, like singing and rapping. We had visual arts as well. But we were stopped by our police station because we needed a permit actually since we were in a rally. And so I decided to do a protest because I didn't want them to stop the momentum. So I did a protest instead. And I'm also hosting my event hopefully next week.
So I thought you said the event is tomorrow.
My protest is tomorrow. My event's
Oh,
next week.
okay, okay. A quick question about kind of, first of all, have you planned an event or a protest like this before?
No, I just like thought of it.
Yeah. And what gave you the confidence as a middle schooler to say, hey, I can do this?
Well, like I work with you guys, and like you guys are very like into like youth can do whatever they want. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter about their age. And I was like, let's do it. You know what I mean? Like I know a lot of people around my city. My city's super small. I was like, I feel like even if it's just 10 people gathered together talking about peace and unity, it can bring those 10 people closer. So I was like, what if 100 people? It's 100 people closer to that. What if it's 1,000 people? It's 1,000 people closer to that and on. So I was like, let me just do it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it works, it works.
Yeah, that might have been a bit of a targeted question because I was hoping you'd say that. And that's just a plug for folks to stay connected with the Youth Activism Project. Hit us up if you want to plan protests and rallies and events like this because, and even if you know, like what you get out of this is that no matter what age you are, you can plan an event and a protest. Like just that, if that's your takeaway, then by all means take that away. But the main the main message I think that both Zaina and I want to share is that you're never too young to make a difference. Like even if it seems like something that you can't, you don't know what the steps are or whatever, there are going to be people in your community at least, or there are organizations like the Youth Activism Project that can help you make it happen. So let's talk a little bit about the demands. You have mentioned that there are some demands that you're going to advocate for. What are those demands?
Okay, so there's a bill. I don't know what the bill is exactly called, but there's a bill in New York that actually Anna, also from Youth Activism Projects, told me about. And the bill is basically implying that racial profiling from police officers should be illegal. And one of my demands is bringing that bill to Rhode Island so we can also have that. Another demand is reallocating money from police to human services as well as education, because I know in Woonsocket we have a big problem with our education system. It's very poor, as well as our human resources, because as I did research yesterday, it only human resources only accounts 1% of the police funding. So I thought that we should reallocate
human resource. The funding that is for human resources is 1% of what is allocated for police.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got, it's like 200,000 for human services and 20 million for the police,
yeah.
which is crazy.
Like it's crazy to me. Yeah.
So someone just jumped in and asked, where is this happening? So just a quick recap, we're with Zaina, who's an activist from, I'm just laughing at that comment. I hope that's like a friend of yours.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Is that me? Is she asking about me or asking about you?
No, I don't know.
Oh, anyway, my name is Anika. I'm with the Youth Activism Project. I've been partnering with Zaina, who's amazing. I don't know who you are. Just kidding. We welcome all people, even people who are shady. So 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 we work with Zaina, we're working with Zaina to plan a protest in Rhode Island, in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, which is where he's from, for those of us that are just joining us. And so if you have any questions about what, Zaina's activism and kind of as we go through this interview, please feel free to put it in the comments or put it in the questions. I'm going to ask you, Zaina, so can you kind of like delineate the steps? I think that's what a lot of people could appreciate, getting a sense of like what does it take to plan a protest and plan the event that you're planning.
Okay. So originally I'm planning two things. So an event and a protest is very different. So let me start with
Right.
the protest. So a
Okay.
protest, my first steps was that was making a flyer, obviously, because since a protest is one of our rights, we have the right to do it. So we can do basically, as long as we follow the guidelines, we can do whatever. So first I made a flyer, and the flyer basically had the date, the time, the location, and just the message behind it. So I made a flyer and I sent it out. I sent it out to Snapchat and I had people repost it. I sent it to people to repost it, and then it spread like wildfire on there. And then I posted it on Instagram, and then I shared it, and then I had other people reshare it. And then with Twitter, I think we gave it to one very big influencer in Rhode Island, and we got a lot of retweets from there. And then I made an event on Facebook, and I made it 2 days ago, and so far I've had like I think 100 and something responses on that too. So I feel like social media is the best way to get your message out there, to get your event out there. And then we were planning on putting up posters around our city, but we just didn't because it's been raining. So
Mhm.
basically just social media is the way I got out, and that was my first thing. My second thing was calling the police station. Even though we are kind of protesting against them, we still have to tell them just in case of any type of backfire from like white supremacy or any other groups trying to harm us and things like that. Just letting them know we're gonna have a protest. So if you see a bunch of people walking, it's happening. So I talked with them, and then my next steps were finding supplies. So for my protest, I'm really big on social distancing. So
Mm.
we had to find someone to supply us for a mask, and then also I wanted to make sure everyone's hydrated and healthy. So I got people to supply water bottles and snacks. And I did all of this on Facebook. So I basically made a Facebook post: who wants to volunteer, and comment if you could provide masks, water, snacks, or if you could do photography and videography. And I've had people sign up all day from it. I've made allies with other organizations slash protest organizers, and that what's really helped me.
Mm.
So I did that, and it helped a lot. So I currently have like all my supplies. So that's
That's
basically I think the
amazing.
gist, and just hope for the best.
So you're basically just getting people to donate supplies
Yeah.
rather than asking for funding, or are you doing both?
I don't really need funding.
Okay.
I feel like a lot of people are willing to donate just because they're really passionate about the cause. But if I wanted to do that route, which I did for my event, I would look for sponsors. And sponsors, I basically called local restaurants, local businesses, and asked them, would you like to sponsor me? And they asked in what way. Some gave me volunteers, some gave me supplies, and others gave me money. And with that money, I would buy things for the event.
Did you learn that from us, or did you learn that by yourself?
I think I learned that for myself. But I think,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't.
because I was like, I don't think we taught you how to do
Yeah, no,
that.
no, no. I just did things. What makes
Yeah,
sense.
you don't know where you learned that from?
To look for sponsors.
Yeah, like how to do that. Because I feel like people will like be like, okay, I know I have to look for sponsors, but I don't know what to say. I don't know how to do the messaging. Do you just feel like,
No, I just told them my event. I was like, hey guys, I'm having an event. I would love to have you guys sponsor. Um, if you want to involve yourself. First, I started the nonprofit route, and from nonprofit route, I had a lot of nonprofit building businesses helping me, and then I was like, let me just do a regular profited business and see what they
yeah.
say. And then they also supply do some other stuff. So depending on the business, I would look to get sponsored because they could help me with supplies, and then some of them
Mm,
actually gave me money instead, and I took that
mm,
as well. And currently, I think I have a sponsorship from who are they? Neighborhood, and they're supplying me with masks. So I got that. And then I had a sponsorship from I think a local restaurant, and they're supplying us with food and etc. So I just kept on looking, and I just found a bunch of sponsorships.
And so what would you say to other young people that, okay, there's like this echo. Okay, I think this is better. I don't know. So what would you say to like, there's still this echo. Sorry, I'm getting really distracted. But what would you say to other young people who, like, are nervous about finding sponsorships and want to hold an event? Like, how would you tell them to like build up their confidence and just do it? I mean, saying just do it is just too easy, right? Like, how do you,
Yeah.
yeah. How can you make just do it possible?
Okay. You can do emails. People often reply to emails, and people who are usually scared of talking, you can just like email people. So emailing is really fun. If not, then you could try using an adult ally, having them, hey, could you help me with sponsorship since you're more equipped and, well, not more equipped, but you have more experience with talking to people and things like that. Could you find me sponsorships? Or honestly, just calling, like, just be like, hey, do you want to sponsor me? And if they say no, be like, oh, well, you can't sponsor me, but maybe can I put a flyer on your like
Yeah.
business or something like that? Do you
But
support
what if you're just like too nervous and too much anxiety? You know, I think a big part of like what I hear from a lot of students is that they have like phone anxiety. They don't want to
Yeah,
talk to
I heard
people
that.
on the phone. Like it's like how do you break through that?
Um, anxiety. I don't know. You just have to find. With me, a lot of my anxiety comes from like certain things and things like that. But with me, I have a really good skill of analyzing my situations. So just really like, what is making you anxious? You know what I mean? And like,
Mm,
why is that stopping me from doing what I need to do? And I was like,
yeah.
can I try? Or at least having like, if you can't do it, how can you overcome this obstacle? So like, if you can't do it, maybe finding someone else who can do it, finding a friend who can do it, finding a parent who can do it. Or
Yeah.
if you guys work with having Anika and like Wendy do it, because they'll do it. Or even Anna. So they'll make
If
calls.
we have time, because we support a lot of young activists. But yeah.
They have to.
Um,
Yeah.
So no, yeah, no. Our thing is like we want to encourage young people to do that, right? Like
Yeah.
we believe that there's power in your voices, and that these are the skills that like we already know how to do that as adults. We want you to learn how to do that, right? But I think I love your advice about. I just want to repeat your advice because I think it's really good. Like analyze like what is the source of anxiety. One thing I would like to add to that is think about what you're gonna lose if you can't do this. Like if you can't,
Yeah.
like if you feel too nervous, like talking to potential sponsors, remind yourself, like, this event is not going to happen if I don't talk to the sponsor. And if this event doesn't happen, we're not going to mobilize people in the fight for racial
Exactly.
justice in
Yeah.
my community, right? So, like, remind yourself what the stakes are. And I also love what you said about, like, if you're shy and you're not very good at, like, public speaking or you don't feel very confident in that, ask someone who you know is extroverted and, you know, recruit people. I mean, that's the biggest thing. One of my takeaways from talking to you is the importance of allies and
Yeah.
like building coalitions and like interfacing with different groups. I think is kind of what you were saying, right?
Yeah,
So
basically. Just making allies and things like that. Making the movement bigger, involving more people. Like one of my allies actually is someone who's running a pride or no, a pride month.
yeah.
What is it? A protest, yes. And they're supplying me with a lot of things like that. And I was like surprised. I was like, wow. Personally feel bad about the whole Black Lives Matter movement happening in June, just
Yeah.
because it's also Pride Month, and I feel like I'm taking away from their spotlight. And they're like, no, we're happy to help and things like that. People of
Right.
color, you guys been sorry, I got a call.
Like,
For so long, so like we would love to help. So just making, just relationships with people, I feel like is really good.
we have a quick question, but I do want to say something about the intersection of pride and Black Lives Matter, but we'll get to that in a second. So this question is, I want to plan an event for Black business, but I'm not sure if I should because I'm white and don't want to take away opportunities in the spotlight from the Black community. So Zaina, what's your advice?
Okay. Well, as a Black person, I think white people doing that is like really encouraging, because not just to Black people showing that like you care about us, as well as to white people, let's step up, let's not follow the tracks of our ancestors. Let's do something for them, and let's start unity and things like that. Being an ally is so important, because I'm a firm believer on like Black people can do so much, to fight for our rights, to fight for justice and things like that. But we need people from both sides cooperating, and you being a model for that to like your race is just great. So I really say do it. And maybe you could find like even a Black friend, because Leo, my co-organizer, she's actually white, and I picked her because she's really passionate about the whole Black Lives Matter movement, and I just think it's really cool. So having people from all types of spectrum from race is like really good.
Yeah, just to summarize that, I would just reiterate the same thing. Like, definitely make sure you have a leadership team that is diverse and has Black people. And then, yeah, I think since the spotlight is on Black businesses, you know, you're not taking away from it because, you know, you're doing it, you're putting the spotlight on them. And in some ways, you can even say that you're using your white privilege to put the spotlight on Black businesses. So that sounds amazing. Definitely make sure that you're collaborative in that. So back to the whole thing about queer and like the Black Lives Matter movement. So that's something that I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think a lot of times people think about these issues as in isolation, but they forget that there are Black queer people, right? And so
Yeah.
how can you acknowledge pride in the work that you're doing?
I mean, she is not Indian. She's from
I'm
Bangladesh.
Bangladeshi. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, though. All right, back to the question that I asked you.
I'm so sorry. My friends are
No, this is hilarious. I'm having a good time.
they're so inappropriate. I'm so sorry about them. I'm gonna call them afterwards. Um, okay. I would have to say like I'm personally, since I'm an organizer, I'm having people from the LGBTQ plus community actually talk in my events. I'm inviting them, and especially like people of color who are in the LGBTQ, I'm having them represent for both sides because I feel like they're really good people to put in the limelight. So that's how I'm trying to like put them in together so we can kind of share the month, because I feel like I said I still feel kind of bad.
Well, yeah, I mean, the main thing too is like you can take this as an opportunity to understand how being queer and being Black intersects, and how that makes you know, life more difficult for people who are both Black and queer, right? So this is the
Yeah.
whole idea of intersectionality and understanding how oppression like gets worse when you have like when someone has multiple identities that face oppression, right? So so maybe asking help from your queer Black friends about how to think about that and how to incorporate that into your larger activism for racial justice might be a way to go.
Yeah, for sure.
um, Cool. Yeah. And the Youth Activism Project, we're also trying to talk more about the intersections of being Black and being queer. And our next Activate Thursday will actually feature a non-binary Black activist from Texas. And so please also stay tuned for that conversation for next week. But for now, we're going to go back to the work that Zaina is doing in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. She's planning a rally and an event, a protest and an event. For those of us that are just joining. And so we were just kind of going through like the different steps. And if you've missed that, we're going to go post it in our IGTV and on our YouTube. So you can figure out like kind of all the steps to that are required for when you're planning a rally and protest and things like that. Because they're all kind of the same thing in terms of like thinking about like the logistics and the support that you need. But you had mentioned earlier, like a protest is different from an event. What is that difference exactly?
Okay, so a protest, I feel like when you're rallied up, just, you know, saying demands, speaking to a direct audience, or just in general. And from an event, our event is we're having entertainment as well as education along. And I feel like the entertainment portion of the whole gathering is what makes it an event, as well as we were gonna plan to supply food. There's a reason why we're not supplying food anymore. It's just the event, since we need a permit, it makes it kind of an event instead of a protest. So
Okay, can you summarize that real quick?
yeah, so an event basically has entertainment as well as we provide food and bathroom and toiletry in general. And with a protest, it's more of a rally, gathering up and just speaking. So
Yeah. And you could also combine them too, right? If you want to
Yeah.
be particularly ambitious, like a lot of protests, a lot of high profile protests have like, you know, like March for Our Lives had, I don't even remember who they had, but they had like a bunch of, they had like what, like Selena Gomez maybe? I don't know. I'm probably making that up. But Jaden Smith, did they have? I don't even know. Whatever. They had a bunch of like famous people and like they ended their rally with a concert, and Women's March was like that too. And you know, you could even do that at smaller protests. You can get local bands. Because and why do you feel like music is important for these kinds of events?
Because I know not everybody, especially youth, are able to speak. I know a lot of people have speaking difficulties, but I know a lot of people who are very passionate through their art. So art is a way people can express themselves very freely,
Yeah.
more than speaking could ever. So that's why I felt like it was really important for people to display themselves and their emotions in any way possible. And art is a great outlet for that.
Yeah. Would you say art is activism?
Yes, because you're expressing your emotions, you're expressing your demands and your wants just in a different way.
Yeah. And I would say in protest history, there's like a long tradition of using music and for like the resistance too. So I think music also just like brings people together, and art in general brings people together, and really, yeah, expresses humanity in a way that other things can't. And so whenever I'm at a protest and there's like music, I'm just like so there, you know. Protests are really bittersweet, right? Like on one hand, it's like we shouldn't be protesting, right? We should just love each other and like not deny people's humanities, but we have to, right? That's just the way human nature is, I guess. And we have to protest for people's rights. And in order to make us feel hope, we also need things like music, right? And chants that connect us and things like that. So speaking of chants, what are some of the chants that you're planning on using at your protest?
Okay, so you gave me a bunch of them. So I have them written down and I have to memorize them, but I'm gonna use the ones you gave me. I forget. I know I really like no justice, no peace, no racist police.
Mm-hmm.
Probably like, Black Lives Matter. That's just in the protest all the time. I know I've had a couple people come up with some and asked if they can start their chants, and I was like, yeah, for sure. And
What are those? Because I think like people also love hearing new ideas.
yes, I have to look it up. It's in a notebook I have somewhere and things like that. But I had people come up with rhymes and things like this, and I just think it's really cool. So if I have them, I'm gonna post them. I'm gonna share them to you guys.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, if you could take videos too, we can post them on our feed and our stories so that you guys can get a sense of what that looks like too. Um, so I have like two more questions, and then I'll also again invite people that are still with us to ask their questions in the comments or the question box. I'm gonna check if there's anything there. I don't think so. So one question is, so after you're done with the protest and you're done with the rally or the event, what's next?
What's next? Okay, well, I totally want to keep the momentum. My event, I want to have this like annually, just so we can always have a reminder and things like that. I'm planning on having a Facebook group so I can keep updating people on petitions that need to be signed, on new things. I'm gonna try to form some type of group, maybe. I'm working with an organization in Woonsocket called Watch, and they're actually a youth. They're like a mainly youth nonprofit organization helping the youth in Woonsocket. So we're trying to add like recreational centers and things like that, and helping the youth in different types of ways, especially minorities. Maybe voting. Yes, that's what I'm doing. I'm actually having a voting drive just because a lot of people, their problem is with their elected officials and things like that. And I was like, when you don't vote, you don't really get a say. And the majority of people who vote actually are like white elderly people, and youth don't really have a big say in vote. And like when it comes to voting, as well as minorities. So I'm having multiple voting drives, and I'm having them in different languages so it can help everyone who has some type of barrier get across them, and just keeping the momentum going, doing small projects like this, like as much as possible, working with my community.
That's amazing. Well, on the note of voting, one thing I want to highlight in your community is that every single council member is running for re-election.
Yes. Oh
And
my God.
you have expressed to me that the community is like and you've expressed, I think like 5 minutes ago too, that the community is just not that pleased with a lot of your elected officials. And
Not
so,
currently, yes.
yeah. And so for anyone else, like definitely check and see who's running, if people are running for reelection, because if, and like kind of get involved with local politics, right? I think a lot of people focus on national politics, which is really important, but local is where a lot of important change happens as well. And if you're not happy with your politicians, you can vote them out, and you can encourage your parents to vote them out if you're not of voting age. And you can hold voter registration drives to make sure that your community is becoming civically engaged. And so we're gonna share some more information about that on our Instagram in the coming weeks. So stay tuned about how to get involved with voter registration efforts if you're interested in that. And even if you're not, get interested because it's so important. And so my final question is, what will you say to other young people? Like, what's your kind of final message? Specifically, what would you say to other young Black people or in this time?
Okay. Don't fall into the stereotypes. I was like really did that. Like, I like heard all the stereotypes, you're this, you're that, you're supposed to be like this and that. Because with me, I have mixed personalities, I'm really into anime, but I love basketball. I love rap music, but I will totally listen to like some kickback queen. You know what I mean? I'm very mixed. And don't let people tell you and put you in a box that you're set to be. You know what I mean? You can be whatever you want, and don't put yourself on a pedestal that nobody else will. You know what I mean? You can do anything you really want despite your social stance, despite who's telling you you can, despite your environment. Like a lot of people where I come from, you'd never think a kid from where I'm at could do it, and then I'm doing things like this that my city council would never do for the kids in my city. So just be the change you want to see.
Yeah, yeah. And, there's always going to be people that will support you. Our organization is here. So if you're really inspired, please reach out to us and we can provide some counsel. Um, Otherwise, like find people in your community. If you have a teacher or a mentor or a parent that will really support you in your dreams, reach out to them, tell them what you want to do and have them help you. There are some adults that are really good at saying no and really being obnoxious, but there are actually a lot of adults that do believe in the power of young folks. So just wanted to highlight that as well. Do you have any last things you want to share with the people before we let you go?
Anyone from Woonsocket or Rhode Island in general, protest tomorrow at Market Square, Woonsocket. You should go. Basically.
Awesome. Excellent. Excellent at putting that call to action, which we talk about all the time. So, yeah. All right, Zaina. Well, it's always a pleasure to chat with you, and we're just so excited to see where you go from here. And of course, we'll keep bringing you back and keeping people updated on your activism.
Yeah, thank you.
You're amazing.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Bye.
Bye.